Tonight, the power of citizen pressure. We report of progress in the campaign to disband party militias now, as both the MPP and the NDC finally commit to sit, talk, and resolve the greatest threat to Ghana's peace: militialism.
We can't afford to let this chance slip. This is a supreme exercise of political will. It's rare in African politics.
In the letter signed by National Chairman Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo and directly addressed to the President, the NDC says, quote, "We will avail ourselves of the opportunity whenever, at the pleasure of Your Excellency, and at a venue convenient for the purpose."
In the last 3 weeks, we have connected politicians and then citizens. Tonight, we connect civil society voices as we continue our push to get the political parties to disband their militia groups. We connect at the summary of the day's news.
From the journey, we have the latest news headlines. Acting Director of Built Environment and the Environmental Protection Agency, Cindy Bedu, has warned that if the menace of plastic waste is not checked, aquaculture and fish production specifically will be greatly affected in some few years to come. She mentioned this at an event to mark International Waste Pickers Day here in Accra.
The environment is a shared responsibility. The menace of plastic waste is now a developmental concern. At the rate at which plastic is entering the seas, there is likely to be more plastic than fish in some decades to come. Any initiative to prevent plastic from entering into the seas or the environment is to be encouraged.
Cindy Bedu is the Acting Director of Built Environment and the Environmental Protection Agency. An 18-year-old female recipient of the 2018 President's Independence Day Awards is allegedly yet to receive her prize a year after she was awarded. Hassana Yakubu was one of the recipients last year after she excelled in her BCE. Her guardians say although they have made several appeals to education authorities, the young girl is yet to receive her prize. Al-Hassan Weima is with the Corruption Control Network and speaks for the girl.
It was one girl, Yakubu Hassana, who they wanted to change it to another girl in Tamale, which was not the right thing. I pushed this issue and I had a call from Director General of Ghana Education Service last prior to the 5th March that because the thing was almost a day, the girl cannot receive it last year, but the girl will receive it with 2019 group. As we speak now, we don't know what is happening.
Now, the Pandai District Assembly says it's queried the school feeding program caterer contracted to provide food to the Loloto Presbyterian School after it emerged she's for weeks not cooked for the pupils. Head teacher of the school, Tinab Isaac, says the school kitchen has been taken over by goats. The caterer, Asana Al-Hassan, tells Joy News she was unable to cook because she was unwell.
I was pregnant. I used to ride from Salaga to Ponda, even monitoring. So somewhere last year, they did operation on me. So the whole of last year, I didn't travel and go anywhere because of the operation. So this year too, I'm pregnant. Me thinking that the headmaster will help me to do the work.
But the district chief executive for Panda, Emmanuel Kofi Tatablata, says the assembly has queried the caterer.
We always want to complain that she has not been well. We have even given her some 2 warning letters to try and feed because since she has agreed she has been paid anytime there's payment. I don't understand why she will not be cooking because it doesn't need her to be present before the foodstuffs are given to the school. You can arrange and the foodstuffs will be taken to the school. So for her to say that she's not well, it's not a good excuse.
And just before we go, it's been 197 days since Priscilla Blessing Bentum, the first of the 3 females believed to have been kidnapped in Takoradi, disappeared. The other 2, Ruth Lafquason, has gone for 88 days, whilst Priscilla Mantibia Kranche has been missing for 71 days. Joy News has waged a campaign to help find the girls. Together with families, we demand swift and consistent action from state security agencies. Join the conversation with the hashtag Bring Back Our Tardy Girls. Ghana Connect continues after the break.
Hello and welcome to the MTN Weather Report. I'm not for and dry. But this year, whatever your needs are, we're there for you. Now the details of my weather report. 15,000 cities could blow from the intertropical boundaries across the country. We can also see a mist of fog patches of 25,000 cities and a heavy monetary downpour of 30,000 cities move to more treat the dry season across the country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everywhere you go, whether it be school fees or acquisition fees, we're there for you. Rent advance, salary advance, your sorted advance, because with MTN, we're there for you. Now keep talking, browsing, texting, and sending Momo to accumulate points and win prizes each month to cushion you this year in the MTN More For You promo. 80 dial *120#. Now check your points. We're there for you everywhere you go.
Everybody make us see you do the dance. Do the dance.
We give you nothing but the best. We stay above the rest. More quality, more affordability. Kingdom Books and Stationery. Everybody's going to the one and only shop where customer satisfaction is a guarantee. Kingdom Books and Stationery.
Oh yes, with our 30 days credit facility with no interest charge, free delivery services, and our free consultation on setting up your office, Kingdom Books and Stationery is unmatched in our delivery of quality and affordable office essentials, equipment, and furniture.
Experience world-class customer service in all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Takoradi.
Call us on 0302-764-101
or visit our website at www.kingdomgh.com.
Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials and stationery. Terms and conditions apply.
Let us help you bank with the right bank. At First National Bank, we're more than just a bank. We're a digital partner that actually understands your business. Enjoy massive value with our various banking solutions. Get a business check account, a day-to-day transactional account for all businesses from all sectors of the economy. Access our online banking enterprise and bank your way 24/7. Invest with our short or long-term options that enable immediate access to funds. Optimize your cash flow, raise capital, and acquire assets with ease with our lending solutions. Trade with speed, consistency, and innovation with our global payments and forex solutions. With so much value up for grabs, there is no reason not to bank with First National Bank. First National Bank. How can we help you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans Manson. I listen to you every day, and I encourage you and thank you for all the educative programs you mount.
And you are live on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Evans Manson, and this is Ghana Connect.
We want you to know that if you don't disband private criminal militia groups, we will not vote for you because we are scared.
The time has come for us as a political class to say that this development is not good for the future of this country.
The NPP has been guilty, the NDC has been guilty in terms of these groups. And so both the NDC and the NPP will have to find a way of engaging the base of our parties.
The NCC will continue to condemn, name and shame all political parties who endorse, support and or identify themselves with any of these groups until these groups are disbanded, word and indeed.
If voluntary disbandment by the parties is not feasible, then I will initiate legislation in the matter.
Joy News, God bless you. If you were not there, Nana Akufo-Addo today would not be making noise about how to disband vigilante groups. We salute you, Joy.
We know them, the individuals in party militias. We know those who fund them. Let's use this to put pressure on the politicians to disband party militias now.
They remain a major threat to our democracy as a nation. Hashtag disband party militias now.
You don't need macho men to be able to help you win elections. Hashtag disband party militias now.
Disband party militias now.
Join the campaign. Hashtag disband party militias now.
Hashtag disband party militias now.
Disband party militias now.
Well, tonight we report of progress, but we shouldn't forget how far we've come. The Ewaso West Wuogon by-election gave all of us a rude awakening, reminding us of a threat we as a people have collectively conspired to neglect to solve. Political party militia was threatening to destabilize this great and beautiful country of ours. The dark clouds over Ghana then became darker when one person was shot and killed on the compound of the NDC party office in Kumasi. With election 2020 beckoning, we the people had no choice than to take action, and so we did. Inspired by the Commission of Inquiry into the Ewaso by-election violence, we here at Multimedia launched our campaign, hashtag disband party militias now. You, our audience, joined us. Tonight, there is progress. After the president directed his party to write to the NDC for a meeting over the matter, we have yesterday seen a reaction from the NDC, committing to meet whenever, wherever, but also suggesting alternative ways in which that dialogue will be most beneficial.
In the letter signed by National Chairman Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo and directly addressed to the President, the NDC says, quote, "We will avail ourselves of the opportunity whenever at the pleasure of Your Excellency and at a venue convenient for the purpose," unquote. The President had requested a meeting only between the two main parties, but the NDC is proposing an expansion. They want the discussions to include all political parties, civil society organizations, representatives of the media, the military, police and other security agencies, as well as any other relevant stakeholders. They suggest the National Peace Council be appointed as a mediator for such a meeting.
Well, that last NDC proposal was one of many suggestions I heard from the citizens who connected on this show last week. In fact, a citizen had suggested the Otumfuo as a mediator. But of course, the Peace Council will do just fine, and they have already welcomed the opportunity. For the governing MPP, there's also progress, although they are yet to write that letter inviting the NDC for that meeting. Despite this week's NDC leaked secret recording, the party says they are still committed to the cause.
This statement, I wouldn't really see it as the icebreaker, the one that sweeps the matter aside. It still leaves a certain flavor of the state.
However, you're also committed to the process.
Absolutely. We can't afford to let this chance slip. This is a supreme exercise of political will. It's rare in African politics. The president to stand in front of us and say, this is a problem, we need to deal with it, and we need to bequeath our country with better than this. You can't have it better than that. Anybody who derails that process doesn't deserve the respect and trust of Ghanaians.
So, people, we have made progress, really positive progress. For once, the two main parties, NDC and the MPP, are committed to sit and talk about this great threat to our collective security. You see, when citizens decide to exercise their power, the politician has no choice than to comply. But we are not there yet. The struggle to completely disband, disarm, and rehabilitate cannot stop, cannot slow down. We cannot take our eyes off the ball until it happens and we verify that it has happened. So tonight we connect a host of civil society voices to examine the progress and the path towards complete disbandment, disarmament and rehabilitation. Connected with me in the studio is Dr. Franklin Odro. He's the head of research and programs and deputy director of CDD Ghana. He just returned from Nigeria not long ago, where he monitored their presidential and Senate polls. And Nigeria has a very unique history with such vigilante groups that eventually metamorphosed into such a big monster that the state is still battling to control. Doc, thank you for joining us on Ghana Connect tonight.
Thank you, Evans.
Also joining us in the studio is Theodore Williams Anti, Programs Manager, Foundation for Security and Development in Africa, Foster. Theo, thank you very much for connecting as well. Ni Adokwe Kojo is an advocate and a concerned citizen. Abdullah Saleh is Secretary of Whitechapel, a bodybuilders group inside Medina Zongo. Abdullah, thank you very much for connecting.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
You're welcome.
Yes, I'm grateful that you joined us. On the phone with us tonight, it's Chukwu Emeka Eze. He's Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building, a man who traces his origins to Nigeria as well. And so he comes to this discussion with a unique perspective from a country that is battling to deal with the problem. They failed to get a handle on it, and they're still paying for the consequences. And so his perspective will be also interesting. Hello, Chukwu.
Good evening, Evan.
I'm grateful that you managed to join us again on the telephone. Thank you for connecting. Wherever you are tonight, this is your conversation. This is how you can also get in touch.
Join us now on Twitter, hashtag Ghana Connect Live, Facebook, Joy 99.7 FM, or send us a WhatsApp on 0244 340 437, and we will call you back. Join the nation's biggest conversation now and connect to authority.
So don't forget, you can send us your WhatsApp messages. My producers are watching that line. If your contribution, of course, editorially suits this conversation, we'll call you back so you can have your say on this conversation as well. Let me start with you, Chukwu, on the line. Chukwu, tell me, I don't know if you followed this development with the attempt to disband these party militias. There seemed to be some progress. I say seem to be because these politicians, you cannot wink. By the time you wink and finish, they probably has changed the tone. But there seemed to be some real progress. There's a letter from the NDC to the president, suggesting some very concrete ways in which this solution can be arrived at, including they needing a mediator. They suggest that an expansion of the talks to include civil society, the media, the UNDP, and others. What do you make of the progress we've made so far? I mean, I'm sure you understand this vigilante problem better than we in Ghana do.
Well, I think I'm excited, but I am also excited with a lot of caution. Just like you said, politicians can say a lot of things without doing much. But I think in this instance, there is a bipartisan discussion going on, and I do not think that any of the two major political parties especially would want to look bad in the eyes of the Ghanaians. So I think I'm excited, but I think it's also important that as the discussion and the conversation continue to progress, that we will also understand that just mere disbanding of these groups will not solve the problem. The idea is, so after that, so what next? So there is also important to include in the discussion, how do we reinvent such a group so that they don't cause other problems in the society.
That's a fantastic point that we'll be exploring tonight as well. We've explored it with the citizens and the politicians themselves. The what next, assuming we succeed in disbanding and disarming. So stay on the line with us because that's something we'll be talking about as part of the show. I want to hear the civil society contribution on this. Doc, so your first initial comment on the progress that we've made so far since this thing became such a big thing that nobody could avoid.
No. First of all, I think I agree with Emeka, and it's a good step. It's a positive step, and the good thing about this is that the two parties are talking about this in the public space. I think it's important to recognize that elements or leading figures of these two parties, some of them recognize the problem. In fact, I can recall a meeting that Kodeo had following the 2016 elections, post-election review, when we had senior members of these two parties, a review workshop at Adam. And at that meeting, they confessed that this is a problem within the parties and they want some help to deal with that. Unfortunately, when they come to the public space, they don't really express that. Okay. So the good thing about this is that in the public space, they've now come out to recognize that this is a problem.
So in the past, they were expressing concern in private. But
yes.
when they come public,
they don't.
They don't.
Sort of stand, they hold on to that position, stand on it. But in private, when you meet them privately, they will say, look, This is a problem that we ourselves are afraid within ourselves. So we need some external help to deal with. But again, it's like a prisoner's dilemma. Because of mutual mistrust between the two parties, nobody wants to go first to really deal with the problem within the party. But now that at least the president spoke, the national chairman has spoken, there is some element that, look, let's deal with this. And for me, the only two group of people who can deal with this are the two parties.
Okay. Interesting. That will come. We'll come and discuss the content of the NDC's letter. I mean, they are the first to actually write. Yeah? All the president said his party should write, they haven't written, but we've seen their letter. Some of the suggestions in there, we'll interrogate it to see. For example, do we need a mediator? The president didn't suggest a mediator. They said two of you sit, national security should assist you. But NDC says we do need a mediator. They've gone a step further to suggest who the mediator should be. We'll discuss whether we need that. And then the expansion they're suggesting to include everybody else who has a stake in this matter. We'll look at that too and see whether that will advance the process of solving this. But your initial comments on the progress so far, Theo?
Yes, we are also very, very excited. When we first had the president in the SONA calling for the groups, the two political parties to sit and discuss this, it was exciting. Like Doc was saying, it was like the first time you've seen a leader of such high ranking saying this is a problem. Because we all know, but it never really admitted this in public. And so we were really excited, and we are equally excited with the NPP response. I hope we'll go into details so that we see what are the wrongs and rights about it. But we think this is a huge progress, a huge step in the right direction, and is the way to go.
Okay. Abdullah, you are very fascinating for me, because a lot of these so-called militia guys and vigilante people that the politicians use are, well built. In fact, this week, Kwesi Fori was before the commission, and he said some of the macho guys in Med were terrifying. and one of the commissioners asked, I hope the police is not terrified of macho men. No, but that's where we are with. Do people actually come to your group to recruit them for these purposes, just to go and shake people up for political reasons?
Yeah, unfortunately, when it comes to Whitechapel, that is not the case.
Okay.
Whitechapel itself is an association that has a purpose, with a good leadership, with a direction. Of course, we have members who are well built, and then, of course, our intention and purpose is to support the youth in the community, and then make sure we position the community very well. Simply because we are the public figures of the community. And so almost all the time we want to position ourselves in such a way that all the youth coming after us will also emulate our records. Fortunately for us, Whitechapel is an association. Before you even join, we have to scrutinize you.
I see.
To make sure you don't even smoke. That is our first priority.
So this is interesting. So what you're saying is that the fact that you have muscle is not an automatic qualification for you?
No.
Oh, I see. I thought that all you need is to show some muscle and you're joined.
No, Whitechapel is an association that has two folds. We have the gym aspect, and then we have the association, the mother association itself. But it is the mother association that controls the gym. So before you even come to the gym, we have to scrutinize you. If
Checking
you have
background,
exactly. So if you have a questionable character, we wouldn't want to associate ourselves with you. So that is how come I would also associate myself to the comments Dr. made. Because currently we are also happy with the comments the president made, a call by the president, because it's something that is going to help us achieve our purpose, because we want to see the community grow. That is how come we as Whitechapel is not associated to a particular party. No. We
but let me
don't
ask you
have
this.
that direction.
Are you, however, worried, though, about the perception of macho men in society?
Yes, of course, because it's affecting us. Because in our case, we have people with good background. We have officers among us. We have businessmen among us. But most of the time, once this kind of tagging comes in, it affects all of us, because at the point where you find yourself in a tight position where the society is looking up to you, you look at yourself, somebody's tagging you with a bad image, which doesn't augur well for us. So we feel very bad. But then we think that in getting closer to the solution, they should come to the grassroots.
They should come to the grassroots.
So that we express our problems.
These are the places where these people are recruited.
Exactly.
You're saying that don't just have a conversation in the room, but once you do that, go to the places where these people are recruited for these militia groups and try and understand what is happening
and
there.
They should walk the talk.
Okay. That's an interesting perspective as well to this. It's good that you joined us. Chukwu, before we even go to the specifics of some of the things I wanted to talk about, I heard Kandapa before the commission use the Nigeria example a lot. He kept on citing Nigeria because he seemed to suggest that the Boko Haram of today started like a vigilante group with political affiliation, etc., that then grew into this monster. Is that what it is? And if that is the case, what lessons can we learn from that?
Well, there are so many dimensions to the beginning of Boko Haram. But I think that one thing that nobody can argue is that there is a nexus between such vigilante groups and violent extremism. And it has happened in many countries, especially around the Sahel. So I think that it is important that Ghanaians and the government of the day begin to look in that direction. Because what happens is that these guys have transferable skills. So when they end in one, they simply transfer those skills to another. And this takes a lot of progression. And at the moment, you will also look back and say, this was not how the vigilante group started. It probably started as just those who provided security during elections or during the party congresses. But today, they are moving in a certain direction that everybody is now scared of. So it also tells you that they could also move to some other things that might be more dangerous, not just to the citizens, but also the politicians who recruit them themselves.
That is an interesting point to make, Doc. There's a point you touched on. We've just been having conversation with the politicians, and they tell you the reason why they need these guys. In fact, when they justify them, they say, listen, we need our own security. And there's nothing wrong with having your own security. But as Chukwemeka had just touched on, that is how it started. Now it's come to some of them are now armed. Some of them are now shooting people and killing or maiming. It's evolving, is it not?
No, it is, absolutely. I mean, it's in an evolving nature, right? And I think the problem for politicians is that they see it as a short-term game. Okay, we need the group to protect us security-wise for elections. They don't think about what next. If we win, what next? And I think that has been the problem. So you get a benefit from this group, and mostly from the youth wing of the parties. We don't get enough security from the state, and we are in a position to let's protect ourselves, let's protect the ballot. They come and perform this job, and then you win, and then they say, wait a minute, what do you do with me? All kinds of promises given to them. If you win, you're going to get this job, you're going to be put into security services, and all kinds of promises that they give to them, without knowing that when you come to power, you cannot fulfill all of these things. And that is what we've sort of found consistently over the years in Ghana, where there's evidence to suggest that these groups turn out to become part of our security establishment. People who have not been trained, who don't have the skill, and government party in power tend to trust these people more than the official national security apparatus, and provide security training and resources to these groups more than that. We did a lot of studies. We've done a lot of studies in this, and indeed we met some of these groups in Kumasi, in Accra, in Tamale, in BA, and this was a private settings and with confidentiality, and then kind of things that they told us, who provide them the arms, and so we asked them, so if they provide you the arms during election period, what happens after elections?
So who's providing the arms? The politicians?
Politicians, yes.
So there are politicians in Ghana actively gun running,
recruit, buy arms and give it to these guys to protect the interests of the party. And the question is, okay, so after elections, do they come for the gun? They say no. And so what do you do with them? So, well, we rent it out, or we
rent the guns out
for other things, and some of them end up in the land guard issues, armed robbery and things like that. And so it's a very serious thing. And we sort of have sat down for this to really get to a point that dealing with it, and that's why the problem with what next, if you disband them, what next? Yeah. Is a very important conversation to have.
We'll have that. Well, what's your take on this evolving nature of this problem, and where we are now? They've now become highly weaponized.
Yes.
So people are dying as a result. People are being maimed as a result. And Chukwu is warning that if we don't stop it,
then we are getting to the Boko Haram scenario, because it's, as we're watching it, as we said, it's evolved quite well.
Just like Doctor said, seeing it as a short term that is coming from the politician, that is what is affecting we the groups now, as the youth. Because normally when they come, when they are speaking to you, you realize that they only want to use you just after achieving their purpose. That is all. They are done with you. It is only few, maybe one or two, they can just pick and then push them somewhere. But in our case, in the case of Whitechapel, that is not what we do. If you are a politician and you are coming to us, we have to come into an agreement with you in terms of giving us jobs. For
what jobs would you?
Mostly, like I said, some of our people are businessmen. Okay. Of course, we should also be seeking for contracts and other stuff that is going to employ some of our youth. Because what happens is that when we get such opportunities, we try to bring in our youth. Because Whitechapel is an association that has sub-groupings. So, of course, once we get this, for instance, where I am not seeking for a job now. And so if I happen to get an opportunity of a job, I would have to link it to my brother, who is sitting idle.
There's something you said. You said when a politician can go into agreement. So when a politician comes, what would they ask of you? What do they want from you?
In our case, mostly when they come, they would want you to do more of the campaigning. Like I said, Whitechapel is a group that has substructures. And so they
want the youth to do grassroots mobilization.
Exactly.
What about protection for ballot boxes and whatever?
No, in our case, we don't involve ourselves in that. Once they come to us, just like I said, fortunately for us, we have a leadership that is more or less like, excuse me to say, use the word civilized. So when such issues come, we have to deliberate and then come to a consensus. We are going in for this or not.
So what it means is that, look, if you're a macho man, it's not always that you need to simply lend your services for criminal purposes when a politician comes along.
Not at all.
There are associations like yours that you can join and still contribute to society.
Exactly.
Theo, so we're at a point where, and as we have suggested, we've had Doc suggest, the politicians are buying the arms for these guys who operate. But these same politicians, we've said they should sit in the room and talk and find solution. Should we leave it to them alone? And we are now going to the heart of this, right? Because the suggestion is the president says sit in the room and talk. The NDC says, well, that's good, but and in their statement, they actually said there's suspicion. We don't trust the MPP. They don't trust us. And so if you say we should sit in the room and talk, this is not going anywhere. So they say expand the scope to include all civil society groups, the military, the police, media, anybody else with a stake in this. What do you say? Should we leave the parties to do this, or we should take the NDC suggestion?
Yeah. Before I go into that,
sure.
I just want to say that we've seen them evolve even to the level of being absorbed into state agencies like what we saw in Ayawaso. These vigilante or militias, like you call them, in quotes, in state security apparatus, in police cars, and that's how bad it has gotten to. They are not just doing our personal kind of security for the politicians, but they are now in state apparatus, and that's how bad it will get to. Now, to the question about who to personally, I think we should leave the politicians to sit and talk, because you and I have always been sitting here saying vigilantism is bad. We know, we've been talking about it. They are those who are always denying it. So they should sit in their room and talk and give us the response of whatever they came up. Well, it may be good to have a mediator, but I think we should be consulted or in kind of sections. They should do their talking. We are doing that. CDD just organized something recently. We have always been talking. We have always been talking.
You sound like you're tired and fatigued.
We have talked. I mean, so it's time for them to talk and come to us and tell us whatever they've agreed on, and then we take it from there. I think that calling for all others, whatever is to be added, is just running away and watering down the whole process. Because how long is it going to take MPP or government to invite? It will take another year to put all these things together. They should sit down now and talk.
Chuku, do you agree with that?
I think there is a merit to have an interlocutor. However, the caution is not to over-politicize a very sensitive and delicate matter. But I think that most times when politicians sit alone, they end up debating rather than engaging in dialogue. So there may be the need to engage a third party. However, I would caution against over expanding it to the extent that people are not forthright with their opinion and suggestions. Rather, they go and become very defensive and trade on blames. So I think we need to ensure that we balance the idea of an interlocutor to facilitate the discussion, allowing the politicians to own the process, but also ensuring that there is some level of confidentiality at the end of the day. I think the ground rules to guide that process through a third-party interlocutor may be very important. And if all the politicians can sign to that ground rule, including not naming or shaming anybody who has been engaged in such process, is very important. Because sometimes fear of what people would say when they divulge information also affects such negotiation processes.
Doc, the MPP says in the statement to the president, and just to on the back of Chukwuemeka's suggestion there and Theo, that they want expansion to include all political parties, civil society organizations, representatives of the media, representatives of the military, police, and other security agencies, as well as any other relevant stakeholder. I've heard Theo and Chuku say that could pose a problem. Where do you stand on that?
I may differ slightly from my colleagues in terms of bringing external people in. I think it's important because the element for me is the level of mistrust between the two parties. So if I disband, would you disband?
Okay.
Okay.
And the question of who takes the first step?
Who takes the first step?
Okay.
And how do I know that you have
done it? How do I verify that you have to do that?
That's the whole thing. And as I said from my initial comment, using the prisoner dilemmas thing, two prisoners, and trying to see if they can negotiate and have a win-win situation. This has to be a win-win situation for them. But because of the level of mistrust between the two parties, the two of them cannot sit and agree that, okay, I'm going to disband, you also disband tomorrow. Because they are not too sure whether if NDC disband, would they leave the Hawks and then disband which other one? Or maybe NPP will disband Delta Force and leave the Invisible. I mean, they are not too sure. And that is why it's important that I think Emeka pointed to that, having a middle person, a mediator, or someone.
The next one, they want a mediator. They want a peace council to mediate.
To mediate. So I think it's
you support that.
I support that. I support that.
Is a peace council the right mediator?
Well, at this moment in our political situation and settings, the peace council is the body that has been spearheading peace building and peace promotion and trying to convey parties together whenever we have crises that relate to elections. This, even though...
Forgive me, Chuku is making a point. Chuku, yes.
That's exactly the point, Frank. They have the convening power. And if I understand Peace Council very well, normally what they do is that they also go for externals they have been partnering with, which of course includes institutions like the ones that you have in that studio, that can now come and they can leverage on their skills. But in terms of the convening power, the Peace Council stand a better opportunity to convene the dialogue because it's a state institution that have, over the years, distinguished themselves as a true mediator.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the point that I was trying to make. So, and we need to have, to assure all of us as citizens and stakeholders, we need to have some witnesses around and the kind of agreement that they are going to sign or reach and when and how they're going to be disbanding this group. And so it's important that we put these two group of people in the room, but in having that conversation, there has to be some other groups to serve as witness.
Okay.
So,
So you support expand it?
I think so.
Bring other stakeholders in.
Because as we speak now, I'm not too sure if the NDC trusts the security agencies.
They don't.
It's the same way.
One other condition that says that they want the government takes immediate steps to disband and disarm the illegal armed force being maintained by the National Security Council, and they should also rid the security agencies of those party elements they have integrated.
And Evans, it's the same way that the MPP also distrusted the security agencies when they were in opposition, and therefore had to bring some. Remember the so-called mercenary from South Africa. So it's a game that both are playing.
Yes.
Phil.
And I think it's too early for the NDC to start asking the government to disband groups. They should sit down and talk.
Sit first.
Exactly. And then they can have the right and authority to ask for those things.
But consider that they started this letter by saying they are ready to sit and talk. Yeah. However, these are the things that I think.
Conditions. They are putting in conditions. So what if the NPP is not ready to do that now? Then they set the whole thing back. So I think it's too early for conditions. Prepare to sit and talk is great, and we all want that. And whether we're the mediator or whatever, but we need a mediator because they might kill each other.
In the room.
So
yes, Abdullah.
But I think
we need a mediator. Yeah. Okay.
I think there is one aspect of the whole show we're trying to neglect. That is empowering the security personnel. Okay. Because I think when it comes to the appointment of the security heads, that is where I think there is a problem. Because you realize that all the people who are being appointed are inclined to the party in
and this
power.
point you made is important. And so this should come with a holistic approach. So you shouldn't just disband and disarm, but the factors that contribute to the mistrust must also be dealt with. So this must be very comprehensive. Now, Chuku, I'm going to take a quick listen to my audiences on social media. When I come, I want us to now talk about, so we said disband. What would disbandment look like? In real practical terms, how do you disband these groups? I think we have I always thought disband is easy, but as I've thought about it, it sounds very complex, right? So as they go into this room to talk, what does it look like when you say disband a group such as we know they have? What steps? What are the concrete steps that will constitute disbandment? And then there's a second thing that we've also heard: don't just disband, disarm. And there's a third one: rehabilitate after you've disarmed. That is what next? That what next factor as you succeed? We'll talk about that. I want to hear from my listeners on social media. Yeah, Ernest.
Let's start from Kumasi. Obi Bejekum says, Evans, the impact of multimedia's platform on Ghanaians is so huge that politicians have a reason to end the use of party militias in Ghana. Hashtag disband party militias now. This one from Kumasi also says, it is great news on the progress made so far in dealing with this monster called party militias. But my fear and caution is this: I'll be very glad if the ruling party now can do so cleanly without trying to claim credit or source cheap political points. This is what I noticed in the NPP's line of communication, and that's also your namesake Evans.
People are trying to use the process to score points.
Exactly, and that's what he's wanting.
So NDC went first with a letter, and if you read it through it, okay, the president directed his party to write the letter. His party hasn't written the letter, and they write first, So yeah, I mean, but we should, as he's saying.
Yeah, nobody should take credit for it. And Muville also in Kumasi says, indeed, it is sad how we queue for several hours to vote to elect our leaders, and immediately the results are declared, a small group of crooks take the credit for the victory and hold the leaders to ransom. The earlier we do away with these hooligans, the better for us. And Niyi from Winneba says, if it is true the NPP brought Kanda boys from Tamale and the NDC Azoka boys from Tamale, then one can conclude there's mistrust among the political parties, and the solution is mistrust among the political, and the solution is a national ID card. When mercenaries are imported into conflict zones, they can easily be identified. That's what Niho thinks. Also in Kumasi, Kojo in Area says the thuggery occurs mostly during elections at the polling stations, and the two political parties should reaffirm their confidence in the police service to ensure security at the various centers and leave the police to do their work. One more here from Eric says, good evening, Evans. I like the name you came up with. It's really gaining grounds, militias and not vigilantism. Dr. Aining's book talks about all of this that we are discussing now. And one person who is reaching us from Germany, Kwame Ampon, says, Evans, I believe the fundamental cause and promotion of this party militia is financial support, and the politicians are really behind this. If these people don't get financial support from the politicians, do you think they would have the motivation to do the things they do? Here in Germany, everything in terms of protection is done by the police.
Thank you for your thoughts. Keep them coming in. 0244 340 437 is the WhatsApp line. Chuku, so let me come to you. So we've said disband, right? So what does it actually look like? And how do you go about disbanding a group that is armed, that has been used for all these nefarious purposes? How do you do that? How does it look like in real terms?
Well, if there are templates that we can borrow from, because in this case we have had templates that have been used to engage in DDR. I think it's important to tweak that to suit this situation. The first thing is that there must be an assurance to those who you are disbanding that they are not going to be handed over to the security agents.
So you're talking about amnesty.
There is need for that amnesty. Then the second thing is also that communities must be ready to accept. That's the process of reintegration. They must be ready to accept them, even if they have offended them in the past. They must be ready to accept them. Then, of course, the third thing, which, of course, is both immediate and on the long run, is that they must be re-engaged. And the re-engagement is not such that if they are getting 100 cedis a day at this moment, and then you go and engage them in a job that will be getting 10 cedis. That will not work. It did not work in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. So in an attempt to agree on that, I think those discussions at that level of political actors should include in each action plan, how do we ensure that we engage these people properly?
And just before I come to my guest in the studio, but final question to you on this one is, there's a suggestion from both Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu and the Mr. Short, who chairs the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission, that reintegrating these guys, back in some form of the official security arrangement could be the way to go. And they cite, for example, the Liberia example, where post the conflict, they gave amnesty and some of these guys were reintegrated. What's your take on that? Will that work?
I don't think it will be in its entirety. It's also making the assumption that all of them want to work in the Orthodox security outfit. I think there may be more options to put on the table for them. For example, some of them might want to be in private security firms, not necessarily the state security firm. So it has to be several options that are available that will be put on the table for them to make choices. Otherwise, we'll put them into a place where they will still infiltrate the state security agents. And background check is also important.
Doc, how do you disband and disarm those groups? I know it's a difficult question, but these are the things that the parties will be talking about. Yeah. So maybe they are listening. If you have some thoughts, please let's share.
I think my good friend Emeka has, he's into this field and knows the terrain very much. So he's sort of given us a template. But I think the challenge here with disband is that who are you disbanding? Good. Because this is a group that all the parties don't have any structure in the parties that they call hawks. If you look at the NDC, NPP constitutions, they have the youth wing, they have the women's wing, but they don't have invisible forces, right? And none of the party leaders have come out to own that we do have this group.
This is a party group.
That's a party group. Yeah,
the closest you can come to is what we had this week, is that individuals in the party.
Exactly. And being financed and supported by individual party people. They may not even be executive members of the party.
Talk, it sounds like this is even more complex than...
So what are they? Why are you going to disband? So that in itself is a problem when you talk about disbanding.
That's interesting.
But I think the parties know them. Exactly. The parties' official leadership know who this group are. And how many are they? And who are the... Where do they live? I mean, it's a very complex issue that we are... They are not... RPF rebel group that we know that is the rebel group. The leader is Chastela or something like that. And so if the Chastela comes to a negotiating table, he can command other troops to do. There's a Delta Force branch in Koforidua. There's a Delta Force branch in Kumasi somewhere. Who coordinates all of them? So it's a very complex issue. But I think if the parties are sincere, they know the individual politicians who really finance these groups, and they can find a way to identify this group and stop their actions. So that is in the first place the parties being sincere and being honest and being open and bringing out the individuals within the party that who are financing and propping these groups.
So are you suggesting that the first step, identify the financiers?
Absolutely. Who coordinates this group, who gives the money, who provides information that, look, we're going to do this election, or we're going to this place. So, for instance, if there is the NPP guys who go to these offices to ransack and remove people, who leads them? Who provide? You need to find these individuals in the various regions or districts or constituencies to be able to identify their own members.
Very interesting point, because, and I'll come to Abdullahi on this one. As you suggested, your research shows people buy the weapons and finance them. So what you're suggesting is cut off the head of the snake.
Yes.
As in, cut off the financial support. And this is tried in dealing with terrorism, for example, around the world. You deal with the financing, or you kill Osama bin Laden, and you hope that Al-Qaeda will die, because the person who financed is gone. They no more have the financial power. They can't get the weapons anymore. They will struggle to get daily bread because the guy was sponsoring them. Eventually, they disperse.
But it's more complex than that.
Yeah.
because the financier, the person who put this group together, no longer has control over them anymore, because they have the guns. They have he can't stop them.
So isn't that then you move to the next level of disarming? Once you cut the financial guy out,
then you stop the flow of
then you move to disarming.
To disarming, yes.
But I think that is a more simpler one, right? Because if you send the military guys and you know where they live,
if you know where you can deal with them,
do a raid, etc., and see if you can find the guns.
And I suspect that even our security agencies, the police,
will have intelligence on
of course.
this. Yes,
I suspect it's just that, and that's why they keep referring to political interference.
Yeah.
That is affecting them to be able to do their job, because they know where these groups are. And I recall that in the past, how they even catch armed robbers. They know them.
They know them.
They know where they sell the goods, and then they can go.
Very interesting thoughts. I'll come to Theo and I'll come to Abdullahi. Phil, on this one, on this question.
I think it's very complex, but like Emeka has said, there are several templates we can borrow and use. Let's remember, this is not a Liberia.
True.
Neither is it an Afghanistan. Neither is it a terrorism thing. It's kind of unique on its own, and we have to treat it as such. So it may need a lot of consultation. It may need a lot of ideas from across,
But I need your idea.
Yes.
I need I need specifics
now.
now.
My idea is getting them seated in the room.
But I need
and coming clean.
They will. I think now they say they will. So let's take their word for it.
So
but I want to move forward to. So they sit.
And then they are sincere.
How do you disband? And they are sincere.
And they are sincere.
And they really want to disband. What suggestions do you give them practically how they go about disbanding? We've heard a few. We've heard Doc. We've heard Chuku. What's yours? Because I think that's the thing. They are listening to you guys.
Yes.
And well, not only they, everybody else. Because everybody's scratching their heads. We haven't been here before. So if anybody tells you you've done it before, they're lying.
Yes.
We're trying to borrow from good practice elsewhere.
Yes.
And so as we have these conversations, it helps the process.
Yes.
So that's what I want us to do. So throw in yours.
From the top of my head, which is not very thought through.
Don't worry about that. At this point, no idea is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I think that a lot of consultations with the political parties and with the groups themselves will help us to disband them, because it may not be excellent, or it may not work to just raid and then collect the arms, and then what next? So it may be important to have consultations with them, both parties, cut off the head of the snake, and then after that, what? You consult with the groups, find out, they may even be willing to, surrender their arms. Who knows? We could take that option, and if they do, then we talk about how to integrate them, whether into the official security or orthodox security forces, or into private. That may be a way.
Something that struck me, Abdullah, you take this unfortunately, but what do you do with those who've committed crime, right? So Chukwuemeka says, the template says the first thing you do, some sort of amnesty. However, what about those who have committed crimes? Do you also give them amnesty and
within the association, you mean?
No, I mean, we're talking about vigilantes and militias generally.
Yes, that is the point I had wanted coming to. Like I said, the whole issue is interrelated. you realize that even the individuals who are recruiting these people are also doing it for a purpose, for their personal gains in future. So what happens is that they have already bought the security officials.
Okay.
At a point in time, if such a person commits a crime, already he has somebody who has to speak on his behalf, and then at the end of the day, the person will be released or something. But that is where I still come into strengthening the security services, so that if at the end of the day the political parties speak in their room and they come to a consensus, they all come to an agreement that we're going to disband these groupies, fine, that is agreed. Then in this case, we will also be thinking of getting closer to these individuals who are known to the political parties, who are recruiting these people to the benefit of the political parties and the individuals.
You make an important point. In other words, part of this conversation should include the parties making a commitment to leave the police to do policing.
Exactly.
And so those who have committed crimes will just be dealt with by the police. Chuku, what do you make of that? Because that's a very important question. Because you talked about the template of amnesty, but it comes back to. But what about those who actually committed crime? And the suggestion is leave the police to deal with those ones separately.
I think first of all is that I don't think the police have any issue dealing with crime and criminality. I think that it has always been the political interference that is making it look like the police is weak. However, Evans, we need to tread cautiously. If we go after crime at this stage or go after those who have committed crime, don't forget that these are people who are in the same group. We might get it wrong. I'm not saying that we are going to sweep justice under the floor, but we need to balance it a lot. But in terms of concrete things that we need to do, it is going to have or take a multi-track approach, including the business community, including the development partners in Ghana. Everybody needs to be on board. It is not going to be easy if we say only government should handle it or only the political parties should just say we disavow. No, it doesn't happen that way, because then you create a bigger problem for the entire society. So how it works is that the business community, the oil industry, the telecom industry, everybody should have a basket fund that we are going to use to re-engage these guys and assure them that they are going to have something more meaningful than what they are doing at the moment. Even religious groups, even activists, even those of us in civil society, it will take a multi-track approach.
Okay.
Evans, good evening. We are here simply because the police service has been weak. Everywhere we have had militia or party vigilante or any form of vigilante, the good parts of vigilantes is that they help with law enforcement. Our challenge rather is that we have vigilantes who are laws unto themselves and other committing crime. But the interesting part here is that when the president speaks about regulation and all of these things, I believe that we already have a template there, because there is the Ghana Police Regulation, Private Securities Regulation. So if all these groups are security organizations for political parties, they are security organizations that must be registered with the Ghana Police Service. It is interesting to know that even in that regulation, to employ anybody in the security service, you need permission or license from the Ghana Police Service. But in all this discussion, it's as though the police are looking on and everything is going on as...
You introduced an interesting perspective to this, which is the next step the president has threatened, which is that if all else fails, regulation. But you said regulation already exists.
It's already there.
So let's enforce it.
And the interesting part too is that in all these arrangements, for instance, we have the presidential call. We have had party militia because of security for political rallies, political demonstrations. The question is, does the Ghana Police Service have a department for political party activities?
Yeah, maybe that should be part of the things that should come out of this conversation. But let me wrap up with you, Doc. So we're at a point where I think it's very clear that this is very complex. Suggestions have been thrown about. And so already we are beginning to appreciate how tough it's going to be if we leave the political parties alone in the room, because they will need the expert views to help them reach. Because people like Chukwuemeka and yourself who have done research and traveled around the world can assist the process. But finally, to the final point that Chuku makes is that you have to find skills for these guys. You can't just leave them. If we don't like the reintegration concept, what do we do? do we train them in other skills? And very briefly on that, because that's, I guess, the next big thing.
I think that the short answer is that we need to find opportunities for this group, because they have tasted strength, power, and wealth. All of a sudden, they're going to lose it. Yeah. So if you lose it, then we are opening the society for other criminal activities. So we just need to find opportunities for them to live.
Abdullah, because you have an organization that does this already with all these macho men, in 30 seconds, what works in terms of giving these people something meaningful to do? What works?
For instance, in our association, we have plumbers.
Okay.
Those who are willing to explore what they are capable of doing. So such people, we can strengthen them. For instance, if the governments can even get these people in a department where we have plumbers, we have those into constructions, but we have all these people. But at the point whereby the person has learned the trade and then he's sitting idle, of course, once such opportunities comes, that is the negative.
But that's an important point you make. So those also without the trade, put them in a system that gives them the skills.
Exactly.
And that they can then go off after you've disbanded and disarmed to go and now, or maybe even give them some capital to start something after you've equipped them with some skills.
You speak to them, most of them are willing to stop these activities.
I'm grateful that all of you joined me. Chuku, I'm grateful that you joined me on the phone.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you very much. Let me hear from finally my listeners.
This one with no name says, number one, Evans, they should agree not to use them for anything. We should start from there. 2, government should train them and use them. Generally, they need jobs. The other aspect will be insulating the police from political influence so that they can deal with any crime. And 3, you people in the media must master courage to name and shame. And finally, this one says, I don't understand why disbanding these so-called party militias, which I call men fit for the farm but glued to the city to cause political vendetta, has become an issue. It's just not telling them when found, you'll be dealt with.
Okay, so in other words, it says just tell them when you're found, you'll be dealt with. That is a part of just cracking the whip. But Chuku warns us that if that's all you want to do, it might not solve the problem. It's not just a simple case of let's arrest them and prosecute and whatever, because a lot of them, have guns. So if you want to go arrest them, lives will be at stake. You have to be more mature in dealing with. I'm grateful, Phil.
Yeah.
Abdullah.
My very last word is that we don't have any choice than to reintegrate them.
Okay.
We don't have any choice if we want to be a peaceful country.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Abdullah. Doc, I'm grateful. Adokwe, thank you also. Thank you all for listening. This is Ghana Connect. My name is Evans Spencer. Join us again next week.